Have you ever considered that God's grace is uncomfortable? Yeah, uncomfortable. Let's dig in. It's time for Grace Points. So sometimes I live my life by this philosophy, give me an occasion and I'll rise to it. And that's gotten me in trouble more than once. Because those scenarios have been challenging, they've been difficult, they haven't always been easy, and I've tried to bring my best, and sometimes it takes a lot out of me. The reality is God allows difficulty, challenges to come into our lives for a myriad of different reasons. We deal with challenging scenarios all day long. A tough coworker, a difficult scenario at church, sometimes a rough situation at home. And during those times, we're prone to think that in our prayer life, when we're praying for deliverance, praying that God would take it away, praying that God would fix it, we're prone to think that maybe God's not listening, that his presence isn't there, that he missed the memo, that evil is winning. And that's not the case. Sometimes it's just God's uncomfortable grace. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 6 and 7 says this: "In this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. These have come so that your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may be proved genuine and may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed." Uncomfortable grace. You see, we're prone to think that grace is sweet and providing and soft and cuddly and restoring and gentle. We're prone to think it's comfortable grace, and truthfully, a lot of the time it is. But have you ever considered that sometimes those seasons of difficulty are really God's uncomfortable grace at work in your life? Yeah. That those challenging people that you're dealing with, or that rough situation at work, that difficult coworker, that challenging scenario at church where you've had to rise to the occasion and figure out how you're going to solve it, sometimes that is God's uncomfortable grace. Because God uses those scenarios to do something in us. He uses those challenges to cleanse us. He uses those to purge our characters and to draw out impurity. He uses it to perfect us. He uses it to refine us and smooth away those rough places, to make the best out of us. He who began the good work in you is faithfully completing it through moments of uncomfortable grace. So in your seasons of uncomfortable grace, I want you to fight the temptation to doubt the goodness and presence of God. Because when you do that, you're prone to trust him less. When you question whether or not God is with you, and you question whether or not God is listening because the situation hasn't worked itself out yet, you're setting yourself up to question God, to doubt God's power and goodness in your life. You begin to trust him less and less when you succumb to the temptation to question whether or not he's with you in times of challenge. Instead, I want you to consider these seasons God's uncomfortable grace. God is refining you, purifying you, and perfecting you because he thinks you're that valuable. And he's setting you up for greater. Yeah. Uncomfortable grace sets you up for greater. Uncomfortable grace sets you up for greater faith in God, greater responsibility that he will give you, and greater reward when you're faithful. That's right. God's uncomfortable grace, these seasons of uncomfortable grace that he employs in our lives to perfect us and purify us, they're setting us up for greater faith, greater responsibility, greater reward. Ultimately, setting us up to walk on streets of gold in heaven when Jesus comes again. So I want you to lean into it. Here's your occasion. Rise to it. Embrace uncomfortable grace and allow God to perfect you because you're that valuable to him. So I'll see you next week. Thanks for checking in. Always a joy to see you. This is Grace Points. God bless you.